All right.
Just make sure you keep your hands warm.
My hands are warm. I'm good. All right. I'm going to ask you a question.
Yes, ma'am.
We're having a good talk out on a walk. It's usually when our...
Talk on a walk.
Talk on a walk. It's usually when we come up with some pretty crazy
Thoughts,
ideas,
philosophies.
So we decided to record it. Let's see how it goes. All right. So here's my question. If you have a business partner, you know, most businesses start with 2 people, right?
Unless you're a solo entrepreneur.
Yes. But usually you end up having some sort of a business partner.
Yep.
What are the characteristics each business partner needs to have? Because now we're agreeing, like, you kind of have to be opposite, but you have to have the same values. But what are the characteristics each one of them have to have to combine together to make the best business partner?
All right. Well, let me just quickly say, I look at it as not just business, but you could say this is for relationships. You can say it's for just friendships, business relationships.
Totally true.
With partnerships and, you know, alliances, affiliates, the whole 9 yards. It's like, what do you need, right? And I think when you're starting to build something extremely impressive, right? Something that could be a game changer, the 2 people have to be almost dynamically different. Meaning, like, their strengths are your weaknesses and your strengths are their weaknesses.
But isn't the hardest part for them to, like, admit what their weaknesses are?
That's exactly the problem, right?
Yes,
is that, like,
communication.
the communication and the transparency of saying, okay, yes, I have this weakness. Now, what do I got to do to build that into a strength? And then you're going to start going, well, if that's what's making you guys the best, how much should you become strong in that position? Right? Because if you become strong on it, doesn't that mean that the balance of the relationship isn't there anymore?
Right.
So that's where we go into this huge analytic component. But
yeah, I mean, I guess it goes, what are the characteristics that they need to have that are different, and what are the characteristics that they need to have that are the same? I mean, I think we just said the first one being communication, starting with the ones that, you know, you have to have the same.
Yes, and I would also say communication key. People need to have a growth mindset. That's what 2 people both need.
Right.
Because if someone has a fixed mindset on a certain point, then they're never going to feel as though they can grow or learn how to be stronger in their weaknesses, right?
Right.
Whereas if you have a growth mindset, you can accept the responsibilities, you can accept the weakness that you have, and be able to then learn and listen, really, essentially, to that person to get better, so that you guys can continuously grow.
Right.
And just like how we discussed yesterday, it's like branches of a tree.
Yeah.
Right? And or just think of it as like a wave. Right? If you're in line, you're parallel. Like we're walking on this trail right now, we're not looking eye to eye. We're looking in the same direction, right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes when you just go off, even like a millimeter, right? You can branch off into 2 different directions.
Right.
Like, even like a millimeter of a change could set you years apart. And when that happens, that's where the relationship becomes rocky. And it's where those kind of differences create breaking points, because too far apart, you break off. And the relationship and whatever
because everyone
relationship,
changes. No one stays the same.
changes.
You're either going in a positive direction or negative.
Yeah, and so the one constant that we can always rely on is change, right? And that's that's the positive and negative of life, right? And that's what we're talking about here is when you really break it down, there's always a positive and a negative response. And negative does not necessarily mean bad. It just means that there's a balance that is not there. Like, and positive is not always good, right? It's just that there's the yin and the yang, if you would.
Yes.
Right? And if you know the yin and the yang, I mean, we got it tattooed on our body.
Yep.
Right? It symbolizes that, you know, nothing can ever be all black and nothing can ever be all white. And so that little dot for the yin and the yang is that guiding light of positive and negative, and like the balance that a relationship, business, personal, you know, anywhere has to have that slight glimmer of light. And some yin and yang dots, right? Some are big, some are small, like, but they're all there and they have to be present. and you have to be able to
work
work
around
through it
them.
and
Yeah.
pivot. Right?
So I guess that's the next one, is they need to know how to pivot.
Well, yeah. I mean, the communication is key. The growth mindset on understanding weaknesses and strengths are huge. But then what do? How do you pivot, right?
So I think, what's great about our business relationship is we both know how to pivot, but we do respond to pivots in different ways. You are calm and resilient, where I'm more of the strategist. So I freak
call it
out.
strategist? I would call it borderline bitch.
Well, yeah, I can be that sometimes, but it's only for the business.
Oh yeah. Well, that a side note, that is true. I mean, we never argue about our relationship.
No.
It's always about business, which is funny. And again, we love having our relationship. It's very successful internally. But it is funny that the only time that you get mad or bitchy or go crazy on me is because it's for the success of the business.
Yeah.
And I've learned to know that and love you because of it.
Yeah. I think that's just because I know that we're successful and we're going to be more successful, and I just want to get us there.
Yeah.
And I do have a control issue. So,
Yes, you
I
do.
mean, I guess that's another, opposing thing. I have control and you have more patience. And I think that, that's an important opposite characteristic to have with your business partner, because if you have two controlled people and you don't have communication on top of that,
It's a recipe for disaster.
It's a recipe for disaster.
Which is funny. I mean, I think we could spend another hour talking about pivoting, which we can, but it brings up the next true essence of this partnership, which is trust.
Yes.
Right? Like,
Yep.
we forget how important it is to trust the other person, because you've gone through your experiences, your partner has gone through their experiences, and so their lives, even though...
And their perspectives
are just so completely different.
Yeah.
People can live right next to each other, but experience so many different things. And it's why no two things are alike. Even twins, for that matter, right? I mean, it's a prime example of that.
It goes back to the communication.
And it goes back to communication.
Yeah.
So if you can't trust your other person, I honestly think with your life, you're going to have issues, because you're going to question their true intention. And if you understand that the intention of the relationship is to have
values,
success,
right?
the values and the mission, and that the guiding light is to be successful, not just because of money. Money isn't what makes you really successful. It makes things easier, yes, but the relationship and the trust has to be based off of the vision of where the company needs to go. And you need to trust that the person who's telling you that information is giving you their best information that they believe is the right choice. And if you can't trust that, and or be open to communicate
and listen,
your concern,
Yep.
and then be open to have a growth mindset
Yeah.
to understand where their perspective is coming from, you'll never be able to pivot right into having a strong business. And that's why all these factors, is there just one thing? There isn't. It's a mirror of the balance of trusting and the discipline to staying focused, and the growth mindset of just knowing how to pivot, and just like believing that success is already there. And there's times where you're going to fight, but then you have to step back and go, why? And ask yourself not why that person was wrong and try to justify it, but go, okay, there's a communication mismatch here. What do they need from me to balance this out? Because that's a question that we use all the time, right? What do you need from me? Because obviously, I'm not doing something that you need me to do, or I don't think you believe or trust me about this. What do you need from me to help you trust me more? Right? And so that's a beautiful line to bring everything together as a business or a relationship, personal, to just ask, what do you need from me? And then look to fix yourself, because if you can do that.
But that's where it stops. You can tell people to do that, but you have to be open to reflecting.
There's reflecting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so reflecting everything and see like how you could have been better.
Yes.
Which works into the growth mindset. I mean, a lot of these are just subcategories of like the action plan under the major topic of trust.
I mean, these are
communication.
principles of success. You hear tons of people talking about this, and
Yep.
it's the same thing for any relationship. And if you follow them and you actually understand them, you can have a successful business, a successful marriage, a successful relationship with your family. I mean, it's right there in front of you, and people just
Are afraid. And that's where. I mean, we could stop this and create a whole new podcast, right? But it goes like, what stops people from doing that? And
pain.
You know what? Yeah. So you know what we're gonna do?
What?
We are gonna stop this right here because we're gonna go off on so much with this, and I want to have a fresh outlook, a fresh, brand new question, and
So
let's get
this thought to
everybody
be
on.
on pain.
Well, it could be on pain. We don't know where it might go, but it will be on the topic of this. What stops people from doing what we just talked about? Because it seems so simple.
So simple.
So
right?
why aren't people doing this more? Find out on the next podcast. All right.
All right, sneak peek.